2023. This meeting of the City of Lincoln, Lancaster County Railroad Transportation Safety District, commonly referred to as the RTSD, is subject to and adheres to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection and is posted by the entrance to this room. The RTSD agenda and all the materials that are being considered at today's meeting were posted on the RTSD website on June 5th, 2023. The RTSD website is also accessible by links from both the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County's official government sites. In addition, on June 5th, 2023, the meeting agenda was posted on the bulletin board located in City Hall, first floor, 555 South 10th Street. A copy of the agenda is also available at the entrance to this room. One copy of the meeting's agenda and all the materials being considered today are located at the dais, and complete copies of those materials are on file at the RTSD office at 949 West Bond Street, Suite 200. With that, Mary, I'm just going to ask you to do a roll call this morning to get us started.
Edmondson,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
and Vest.
Yes. Not present is Commissioner Schulte. So we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
Move approval, Beckius.
Second.
Edmondson, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Edmondson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Item number 4, election of officers. President, we need a president, a vice president, and a secretary.
Chair Vest.
Yes.
I would make a motion that we continue on the current slate of officers for another year.
And I would second that.
Okay, and just so we're clarifying, Tom, that is Rick Vest.
Rick
as-
Vest is president, James Michael Bowers as vice president, and is it Roma as secretary, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly.
General secretary or secretary.
Oh, I like that.
I think that slate could do great things. So thank you for that, Tom, and Roma seconded it. Please call the roll.
Beckius,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Edmondson,
Yes.
and Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Item number 5, we have the report of statement of financial activity presented by Dennis, the one and only Dennis Myers.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. So today, I am going to just talk about this financial statement. So basically, all that is doing is kind of showing through the fiscal year from July 1 up through the date was May 12th. So when you take a look at the receipts, is it already up there? That might not be touchscreen.
Oh, it's not. There you go. There's the fine.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, Roger, this isn't touchscreen stuff. You're too modern for us. So anyway, when you take a look at this, you'll kind of see, looking at actuals compared to budgets, revenues are actually, 7.7 million versus a budget of 6.1. You take a look at the expenditures. The expenditures are at 609,000 versus a budget of 1.6. So, in all reality, revenues and expenditures are both to the good when you take a look at them. If you scroll down from there, you'll see cash and investments, and you'll see the overall fund balance is 26.9 million, and about 26 of that is really the investments that are out there. You can scroll down, you can kind of see the different types of investments, but what you'll notice is, I'm going to scroll back up to investment interest income up there. where we budgeted 80, but we've actually received 280,000. What that really just kind of tells you is when you look at those investments and you actually see some of those investments rates right next to them, you'll actually kind of see that some of them were over 4%. So that's really a lot better place than we've been over the last few years. So you actually can kind of see some of the earnings that are out there. And I would tend to think on some of those investments that will be coming due, you'll also be able to see us jumping from less than 1% probably up to closer to a 4%. So the earning potential will just kind of hopefully keep increasing a little bit. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over today. Questions from anyone?
No?
It's a nice thing when you can be on the upside, both of revenue and disbursements. And I think Roger will probably give us a little more insight on disbursements later, but this just continues the process that's been in place of stockpiling money for the enormous challenge that's before us at 33rd and Cornhusker. So this money will be put to good use soon enough. It's good to be on the right side of that. Any other questions for Dennis? Dennis, thank you for
Yep.
your time.
Motion to accept.
Oh,
I move that we accept the report.
Second?
motion by Edmondson, second by Beckius. Please call the roll.
Best,
Yes.
Edmondson,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
and Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Item number 6, report regarding current budget status. Roger.
Okay, and with your indulgence, if you want to call both items 6 and 7, I'll
Oh, okay.
go
Yeah.
over those very quickly.
That'd be fine, Roger.
Okay, thank you. So briefly, the current budget, as Dennis showed, we're going to be under expenditure primarily because we haven't expended as much money on 33rd and Cornhusker at this point in time, as we're still trying to get the environmental document done. We're going to be slightly under in our total operating expenses, so feel good about that. Unless there's some specific questions about the current budget, and again, I'll remind us, we work on a accrual basis, so work that gets done in this fiscal year that ends June 30 but doesn't get paid for into July or August has to accrue back to that year. It'll come out of next year's budget, but from an accounting standpoint, it accrues back to last year for expenditures. I don't see any huge expenditures. Everybody's trying to get their bills in so that we have those paid before the end of the year. Probably the more important thing is discussing the proposed budget for FY24. At the far right is the proposed budget. Was proposing that the operating expenses go up a little over $4,000, and that primarily was in the area of auditing. And the capital budget would go from a little over 1.6 million to just a little bit under 4. Again, as we're hoping to be making some additional progress on 33rd and Cornhusker. 33rd and Cornhusker is the only capital project other than our crossing improvements and miscellaneous engineering and emergency and safety study in the proposed budget. Again, these are exactly the same numbers that we showed in March. I'm not proposing to change those at this point in time. And with that attachment also then down below is a 12-year CIP that has, again, the upper part is crossings, miscellaneous engineering, emergency and safety, and then 33rd and Cornhusker. You certainly will notice as we get out, we start buying right away perhaps in 24, 25, but then construction in 27, 28, and 29, $30 million a year. And I have taken into account and have reduced the RTSD's needed expenditures by including the $25 million grant that we currently have from NDOT. So that is taken into account in both cash flow and the proposed budgets here. So I'm not ignoring that. Again, that is the proposed budget for next year, and I'd answer any questions you might have.
So the 23 budget, Roger, you said was an increase from?
The 24 budget is about a $4,000 increase over the 23 in operating. It went from 224,000 to 228, and the capital budget went from 1.4 to 3.5. For at the very bottom of that page,
Okay,
the current
gotcha.
budget 1.6 goes to 3.7, and
And that increase is in the 33rd, you're anticipating expenses there going from 600,000 to 2.7 million.
we need to be prepared and have the cash budgeted. The environmental document goes in and is then out for public comment. We're also able to start some of finishing some preliminary design with that report and having it better ready to go. Chris will give us a better
And we're gonna, I was gonna say.
update of where we are
Okay.
on that, but
I
that's
just
the
wanted to make
significant
sure I
increase,
captured
yes.
where we were seeing the
Right.
changes.
Yes.
Any questions, folks? Roger? If no questions, then we need to approve both item 6. Do we need to approve 6, the current budget?
No,
We need to approve 7, which is
7 would be, yes.
the
and I
23.
recommend approval of the 23-24 budget as presented on that sheet.
So moved, Beckius?
Second.
moved by Beckius, second by Amundson. Please call the roll to approve the 23-24 budget.
If you don't mind, I'll just make a quick comment, Mr. Vest, if that's
Absolutely.
okay. Just wanted to thank staff. The budget is obviously a very straightforward with a slight increase due to the increased cost of the audit. I appreciate that very much. And the continued due consideration of saving for the 33rd and Cornhusker improvement, and seems to be very straightforward. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you,
No,
Chair
that's
Best. I
fair.
appreciate
I'm
it.
Just deeply appreciative of those comments. We're going to file a draft motion here. All right, please call the roll.
Edmondson,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
And Vest.
Yes, motion carries 4-0 to approve item 7. Moving on to item 8, consideration of levy request for 2023 tax rolls.
Okay, so just as a reminder, this would be actually setting a proposed levy and then authorizing the executive director to send a levy request letter to the county board, because the county board does have control over the RTSD budget and that levy. It's part of the 15 cents, which has lid limits on it as well. So what you have on the screen, I just kind of for fun, I went back just to kind of show folks. From 1990, this is a listing of the levy. And in the early 90s, we didn't have some major projects, so the levy was lower. Then over the years, it's gone up as we've done a number of different projects from North 27th Street, 3rd and A Street, Antelope Valley. But perhaps the important part of the discussion is really getting down here to kind of looking at where we are in the yellow and the green going forward. Right today, in 2022, that is the top green, 2022 tax year, FY 22-23 that we're in, the levy is at 2.2217. County Board has been trying to get that back up a little bit since 2019 and 2020, as they had some other financial issues, so we're back to 22.2217. So I took the liberty of plugging in and remembering we're just doing 33rd and Cornhusker at this time, and I plugged in the capital estimated costs of that project. If we continued in 23 with the same levy of 2.2217, but then tried to get back to the maximum in the following year and keeping it there. And at the far lower right, you'll see a red number that comes in, just about $1.25 million. So even with keeping the levy where we are today, even though there's been a fairly significant increase in the county valuation, and then trying to get on up to 2.6 next year, we have the potential of running short to be able to fund completely 33rd and Cornhusker. Chris will talk a little bit more. We were unsuccessful in getting the RCE grant this year. That's the bad news. The good news is there's still another 4 years we can keep applying, but there aren't any guarantees in that, and this project remains a priority. So with that hitting a red number down at the bottom, I guess my recommendation or my question for the board to discuss is maybe instead of staying at 2217 this year and then trying to jump all the way to 26 next year, 2.4 is almost exactly in the middle of those two numbers. And if we actually went up to 2.4 in this upcoming year, I think it covers the red at the end. I can run a jillion of these scenarios back and forth. But, and again, that would just be a request. We're still, the county board will have to evaluate where they are with their other commitments and other political subdivisions. But for your discussion, my thought, maybe instead of staying the same and then trying to jump almost 4 cents next year, if we need to get up and this project remains a priority, perhaps suggesting to you going from 2.2 to 2.4 gets you halfway there, covers that red, and then it's not quite such a big bite for the next year. And with that, I would hush up and try to answer any questions that you might have.
Just, if I could, for the city council members, this will go back as part of the county board's budget hearings. And if you have questions, we have the man who knows everything in the room. Those won't happen until, and Dennis, feel free to correct me anytime, or those won't happen until August. The part of our budget that Roger's referring to is the 15 cents. That's not the actual county budget. It's the part of the budget that includes the Ag Society, the rural fire departments, the JPAs that we've contracted with. So it's a variety of entities that have to total no more than 15 cents, and that's what the RTSD operates as a part of. So that's 25 cents worth of information about a 15-cent limit. But any thoughts from the board members here about the 2.4 possibility, Roma?
I do have a question in regard to the tax roll valuation.
Yes.
How are you figuring the increase in potential valuations? Or are you keeping that static?
No, we have an automatic 2.5% down there in that spreadsheet, the middle green line. We are trying to take into account that would grow at 2.5% estimated, and I work very closely with Dennis Meyer on trying to project what we think reality is with those numbers. You'll see we have 10% in there for 16.9. There was a pretty big jump in 2017 or 2021, and then again this last year it was significant. So we try to capture what's really going on, Roma, and then project that to the future as well.
Okay, so I know that it's the roll of the dice and everything like that. But, okay. I'm just looking at the tax roll evaluations. 2.5 is very modest in our present environment. And are you thinking that it will not go up during the next few years except for 2.5?
That we've tried to be conservative. It's it's better to stand before the board and say, here's what we got in and we're staying on budget. So we've tried to be perhaps more conservative. I don't want to project that too much and then it doesn't come in and then we have a shortfall actually there. I guess the good thing about the way this board operates is if it's more and we actually receive more money, like this year, there's almost $1 million in there in the budget that we didn't spend. That just rolls right back into the cash fund. So it's not obligated and it doesn't get spent. It's there, and because we adopt a budget and a CIP and a levy request every year, we are able next year between March and June to analyze exactly where we are, and depending on what the actual levy granted by the county board is, we can adjust up or down from there. If we went to 2.4 and the increase is more than 2.5%, again, we can look at those cash flows and say, well, maybe we could lower that levy back a little bit. The only other thing I would say, we stripped out a couple of other priority projects. There's been a lot of discussion about a quiet zone. I'm not promoting a quiet zone today, but we've talked about what I'll call the Hastings line, where Amtrak runs out through southwest Lincoln, crossing 6 or 7 arterial streets, and we've talked about a project that would eliminate that congestion and those crossings. None of the other projects that we've talked about or that might come up in the future are provided for in this CIP at this point. So this is the only project in there. So if we start, we had a period in there from 2017, actually from about 2004 all the way to 2011, where we were able to stay at the 2.6. There were a couple minor variations, and that helped us finish Antelope Valley and some of those other bigger projects. And I think our goal or at least my goal recommending to the board, is to try to be as close to the full levy as we can to be able to continue to do the safety items that we need to do for the community with conflicts between trains and vehicles. So,
Yeah, thank you, Roger.
yeah.
I would just call attention, and maybe I'm not correct, but let's just take a look at the FY 23-24. And if we go across, the increase you've got put in there, Roger, is 16 in the green column in the middle, 16.9%. You're using, I think that's probably a
Yes,
best
if you
estimation.
remember,
That's for next year.
that is what we will collect next year because of the increase this year, because taxes, we don't want to get into one of those discussions between fiscal year, calendar year, tax
Right,
roll
right.
year.
But-
And will be collected next year based on the increased
This year.
increased valuation from
Right.
this year, yes.
My point is, you did take that into
Yes,
account. You
we
didn't
did.
stay at the 2.5. You
No, we did
factor
not.
that in,
We did
so-
not.
Well, any other thoughts? James?
No, I feel like that you've always presented a pretty responsible budget that meets a lot of needs that our community has, and so you've always done a good job, and I think your history and your reputation speaks for itself.
What do you think? Tom, where are you at on this? We have a couple possibilities before us.
I would be comfortable with the 2.4. However, I know that there are other needs and what have you that folks are considering. And once again, this is a recommendation, correct?
You would be approving a recommendation to request that levy from
Right,
the county
right.
board, yes.
And so that request then goes to the county board, and the county board can adjust that request as they see fit.
Yes.
Yep. So I would feel comfortable moving with 2.4, knowing that that may change down the road.
And we will have a budget hearing with the RTSD in August, Dennis, is that accurate? Will we?
There won't be an actual budget hearing, but what I'll show up with all the levies from everybody that's part of the 15 cents to make sure that we're able to get everything within there.
Right.
Did you ask if there would be a separate budget hearing for the RTSD?
Well, I think that's where I was going to.
Yes. And
But
there
not
will-
not with the county. You'll have your own separate
We have a
budget hearing.
separate public budget hearing meeting, September 6th.
Okay,
Preceding the regular meeting. And
Well,
again, we
yeah.
will be reporting what the county board has.
that time we'll know.
Yeah.
Where I was going is that, and Dennis can, or we could use our secretary to accurately capture the reasons why 2.4 would be beneficial to the RTSD. And then the board would make the decision based on the facts, so.
Right.
Okay, Tom, did you make a motion?
I would move that we adjust to the 2.4 as recommended.
Have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second. Motion by Becky, a second by James Michael. And with that, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes,
Edmondson.
Yes.
more on that later. Thank you. Motion carries
Thank you.
4-0. Moving on to item number 9, consideration of additional 1% lid authority.
Okay, and I'll kind of repeat myself a little bit, but just for people listening and remembering, LB 989 passed in 1998, extended and modified a lid on certain defined restricted funds for political subdivisions. And those restricted funds include property tax, and the RTSD is primarily funded through the property tax. And that law prohibited adopting a budget that contains those restricted funds totaling more than the restricted funds from the previous year, plus a 2.5% increase, plus the gain in valuation. But there is one other caveat in there that most political subdivisions have dealt with. There is an additional 1% allowed if approved by at least 3/4 majority vote of the governing body. And again, that is a 1% additional allowance if, and only if, the board needed that in the future and voted to include that. So this just gives you the flexibility of having that additional 1% if needed in the future. It does not change this budget or that levy request at this point. And my recommendation, as you have in the past, is that you would vote to for that, to approve the additional 1% lid authority.
Yeah, this has been a routine item. It's just a precaution, really. I would entertain a motion.
Move approval, Beckius.
Second?
Second by Bowers. Call the roll.
Beckius,
Yes.
oh, I'm sorry, okay. Meh. Bowers,
Yes.
Edmondson,
Yes?
and Vest.
Yes. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Roger.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate.
We'll move on to item 10, report of project and crossing updates. The reason I come every quarter.
Chris Humphrey.
Good morning, everyone. Chris Humphrey, project manager for the 33rd and Cornhusker project. As Roger mentioned, we were unsuccessful at the Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant, the RCE grant. We have requested a debriefing from the FRA on that. So that'll be beneficial as we can refine the proposal then the next time that we submit it. But that hasn't stopped us from moving forward on the project. Olson, who's the consultant, has submitted the draft EA to the RTSD for review. So that's good news. That's pretty significant in that it opens up the third and final phase of their contract with us. So that means that they'll be moving forward with additional preliminary engineering as we move forward into the next phase, which would be final design and right-of-way acquisition. We continue to work with the Corps of Engineers on right-of-way acquisitions, some utility relocations that will be needed, kind of the interface between those two projects. The Corps of Engineers project's moving along nicely. So as Roger mentioned, we could be looking at utility relocations or potentially some right-of-way acquisitions as early as next year, maybe next summer or fall. So that's good news. And with that, I'm open to any questions. It's just,
Yeah, Tom, please.
Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Could you remind me, that grant was for 25, is that correct?
the grant that we submitted for RCE was 58.3 million.
8.3.
The
Okay,
grant
so I was
that-
a little off.
Yeah, so the grant that Roger was talking about is through the MOU that we have with the state. So that would be through NDOT.
Okay, and so
Yeah.
the 58 point, sorry, Roma.
No, go
did
ahead.
you- Oh, okay. The 58.3, can you remind me the agency that was from?
That's from the Federal Rail Agency, the FRA.
Thank you.
So have we scheduled the debrief yet, Chris?
We've requested it, and I believe they're going to be reaching out to us within the next couple weeks to get that scheduled. And I think the next round, we submitted in October last time, so I think this next round will be this fall sometime for another resubmittal.
Yeah, okay. Have we reached, I think our friends from BNSF were involved in this project as well, and they'll be with us at the debrief to support our efforts, or? I mean, we can't control that, but do you?
Yeah, I think Roger's been having some discussions with BNSF on the grant.
Yes, I've been contacted by the BNSF grant project manager that is trying to help get these projects done, and he was asking what he could do to help. I will be at the Four-State Highway Rail Safety Conference in Des Moines next Monday and Tuesday, and we've made arrangements to meet, and we're going to provide more information on 33rd and Cornhusker so that BNSF can perhaps help bring additional support and the importance of this project perhaps with FRA.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to ongoing obviously, if we had gotten that $58 million grant, we'd be having a different discussion about our levy numbers and such. So we'll look forward to continuing that. I have a question, because we've been talking about this project for a long time. I kind of need a visual roadmap, Chris, because I think we're not where we were a few years ago, although we've still got the same kind of challenge that we have to cross before we go on to the next stage. But yet we've made progress despite not crossing that one bridge. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, so we've been in the NEPA. So NEPA is the environmental portion of the project. So we've been in that for quite a while. We've been working with FHWA and NDOT, our consultant, to move forward. We've pretty much gotten all of the environmental, I don't even know how many different things that we look at. I'm going to say about 15 to 20 different items in environmental that we look at. And kind of one of the last hurdles that we had was some park property. And that was originally purchased with federal funds. So it kind of heightens, since we're getting into that park property, making sure that we're making that park, the original funds whole again. So we've been working with the Parks Department, other federal agencies on that. So it just all takes some time, unfortunately, with it. So I'm glad that we are to the point where we do have this draft EA. So it will go through reviews by the RTSD. That will be followed by reviews through NDOT, the state. And then that will be turned into reviews through Federal Highway. And so it kind of goes through this iterative process. And then early next year, we'll have a formal public hearing. That's where people can come up. We can take verbal comments. It's pretty formal public hearing. And then after that, we can move into, there'll be another round of reviews. We'll address the public comments that we hear. And then there'll be a decision document that is given. And hopefully that's what we call a FONSI, a finding of no significant environmental impact. While all of that is going on, we will also be going out for an RFP for final design consultant selection services. Final design is expected to take about a year on this project, and once we have final design complete and it's approved by NDOT, then we can start the right-of-way acquisition process. We do have some ways that we can do advanced acquisition. Depending on the timing of it, it may not be eligible for federal funds. So we'll just kind of have to see where we're at with the process. We do need that decision document complete if we're able to use federal funds on the right-of-way. So some of the right-of-way is full acquisitions. Those typically take a lot more time than just fee simple or temporary easements or permanent easements that we'll get. So that'll follow final design, and then that will be followed by construction ultimately. So right now we're looking at about 2027 if everything stays on course to begin construction. But as I was saying, we're coordinating with the Corps of Engineers, so especially along that 33rd Street corridor, there's a lot of utilities in there, so I think there'll be some opportunities for us to get out in advance, if you're thinking of it from the transportation project, that some of those utilities will have already been relocated, which usually is where a lot of the risks are once we start excavating down underneath the soil and finding out what's there. So that, and in addition, some handful of right-of-way parcels that border both projects.
So I get the message. Be patient. We're working as fast as we can with the dynamics we have. And once we cross the environmental portion of this, things will be a little more in our control and we'll move.
Correct, yep.
We
Thank
feel
you.
like we still have good public support for the project if we can just get over these last steps of the,
I would
Technical
agree with
documents.
that. So,
Chris, I
Roma.
did have another question. The 58.3 million was from the Federal Rail Agency? is that-
Correct, yes.
Okay. The 25 million was from where?
That's through the state. So we have an MOU between us, the state, and BNSF, and that 25 million is included in that MOU.
All right, just a lot of things flying around.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep, thank you.
thanks, Chris. Okay. Update on 33rd, or
Yeah,
Southeast Lincoln, quiet zone status. To finish out the year, I do have a final draft copy from FHU. Mark Meisinger was not able to be here today. One of his staff members are here. If I get in real trouble, Peyton will try to keep me out of trouble. To finish out the year and the last of those submittals, there was some additional costs of just under $5,000, $4,880. And using the authority of the board president and the executive director, we signed an amendment to their contract to finish that takes us to the end of this month and finishes that. As a couple of things have happened out in the field that change conditions a little bit. Previously, this quiet zone limit starting at Calvert Street and going all the way out to Yankee Hill. 70th Street was partly city and partly county. Since we started this process, the city's annexed the north side of that, so now it's all in the city. And so I'm still reviewing some of the proposed improvements at 70th Street with the LTU city traffic engineering folks to make sure that's done. That information then still has to go to the railroads so that at each of those locations they agree or disagree with the improvements that would be necessary to create a quiet zone and supply back to us the costs. If you'll remember, in March, FHU had reported to us that their initial estimates, based on the equipment that was out there versus some of that equipment being older and out of date, and requests from the railroad had gone from a little over $1 million to $3.5 or to $4+ million. I still expect it to even be higher when we get the estimates back from the railroad. But we have to have that information before we can factually have the board discuss doing a quiet zone, not doing a quiet zone, doing a phased approach on all of that. I want to also, so to cover the next year later on, the next item actually is a consideration of an Amendment 4 with FHU. So that Amendment 3 that we just signed finishes this current draft report, doesn't get it to the railroads, finishes this year. So on the website, I had asked for a proposal from FHU, Amendment 4, and that is on the website, to take us through June 30th of 2024, and hopefully sharing of information back and forth needs to be timely, and if that drags on, we all know time costs money, but this is FHU's estimate to do that. I'm going to jump down to task 5 in that memo. If you'll remember, Calvert Street is a dead-end street right at Highway 2 for the elevator, and we had recommended, and the report recommends, Calvert Street being privatized and not being part of the quiet zone. The ownership of the elevator has changed, so now we are going to have to go back and revisit with the elevator to see if they are at least open to the idea of making that a private crossing. So we still would recommend it's not part of the quiet zone. But task 5 allows FHU to support the RTSD in making that contact and determining whether or not they're interested in converting that. If so, then we would look at a separate engineering agreement to do that work, and the RTSD perhaps could participate in putting in cost sharing for gates and lights for added safety at that private crossing, and then it being vacated to the elevator at that point. But so there is a task to at least see if that's a possibility. Most of the concepts and the proposed improvements that were in the report and quickly shared in past meetings hasn't changed in any way, shape, or form. It's just now the time of concurring with the city, getting that information to the railroad, waiting for them to get back, yay, nay, and getting cost estimates for that then to bring back to the board. So we're certainly not anywhere near where I thought we would be on finishing a study, but the railroad has indicated it can take 90 to 150 days for them to take all that information and review it and either concur, request something different, and put cost estimates to it. So we're going to grind away with stuff throughout the upcoming year as well.
How soon do you anticipate we'll get the information to BNSF, Roger?
I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks. We need just a couple things yet from LTU. I've reviewed it. FHU has included my comments, and I think we're comfortable. And at the time that goes to the railroad, previous in the meeting, you had asked for an executive summary, and I will get that executive summary to you when that goes to the railroad.
I guess I get all the private crossing distinctions, but 40 years I should remember a few things. But if on a private crossing, typically it's stop signs only. You know, a public crossing would have cross arms or lights or lights and gates. Private crossings are typically stop signs. So for us to get out, we'd get out clean if we just said it was a private crossing. We put up stop signs, go away, and oh, by the way, private crossing railroads are not required to blow their horns at private crossings. The industry has other wishes in this situation, which would certainly are reasonable from their point of view. It's
Yes.
very understandable. So Roger's going to go examine that Calvert crossing, which only benefits one industry, but
Yeah.
again, it's the right thing to do. So, do we need a motion then to accept this amended?
Actually, that's the next item. I'm still just kind of reporting
Oh, okay.
on Southeast. I have a couple of other just quick updates before we go to that amendment. Lancaster County Engineering has contacted the RTSD, and they are having some approach slab settlement issues for the Firth Viaduct, and asking for the possibility of the RTSD helping to cost share. If you'll remember, we did do some cost sharing for some repairs for the Hickman Viaduct. At this point in time, I don't know that I have a complete estimate. I need to talk to them, but in future meeting would probably have something there for that. I would also tell you that BNSF is continuing to try to keep their crossings in good shape. They provided the city a listing of more than a dozen crossings in the county that they were going to work on. South 96th Street, in Firth, north of Firth, South 82nd, in Hickman Road, 2 in Roca, and then there were 5 in Lincoln, Sawtilla Road, Old Cheney, Park Boulevard, South Street, and D Street. And all of those in the city have been repaired and the crossings improved and they drive much better. I have not driven the ones in the county yet, and I need to do that to just to see how well they did there. But I guess kudos to BNSF to try to continue to maintain their crossings. We'll continue to work with Union Pacific and BNSF. There's some crossing repair that needs to be done down here on J Street, and I see that the industry down there is maybe doing some work, so I'll work on that as well. I think that's all the updates I have.
Okay. Then we will move on to item 12, and that was the amendment attached to,
Yes.
yeah.
So again, this is just a proposal form or a response to my request. It's not actually in an amendment form, has not been reviewed by legal. Again, it would take us through the calendar year, our best estimate of getting us through the calendar year. The estimated cost of that is $30,200. Would propose that would continue to come out of our miscellaneous engineering account, of which there is $300,000 in that account budgeted for next year. There isn't a lot to read in there. Again, we'll get the report to the railroad, get information back, go from there, have the coordination meeting with the elevator, and continue to try to move this ahead. Continue to get emails and comments from a few folks, and we're trying to respond to those about the actual quiet zone. The one that is most perplexing to me is in the beginning when the train started to run, I said that we were requesting the railroad not to run the trains during rush hour, and I think a lot of our public assumed that meant they wouldn't, but we were reminded quickly by the railroad, these are freight trains. They don't run on a schedule. They can come at any time, and they have been doing that, and that's just the way the railroad needs to operate and supply their customers. Sometimes those trains are backed up halfway across the state, and when they can get loose and come through, they make those movements. So it's frustrating. I try to ask everyone, be patient, take an extra 15 minutes or leave 15 minutes earlier. In most cases, the crossing's clear in 5 to 7 minutes, and then another 5 to 7 minutes for the traffic signals to get there. I would plead with them to be safe. Please don't go around the gates and lights. Don't behave poorly. And we'll keep working on that. So,
You do a great job of responding to the public, Roger.
so
I
any
appreciate
questions
it.
about the proposal itself? I think our consultant's done a good job for us. It's frustrating for them too that it just kind of keeps dragging on. But if you were agreed in moving ahead, what I would ask for would be a motion to authorize the president and the executive director to sign engineering amendment number 4 after being reviewed and concurred by our legal representative.
I would move that.
Second?
Motion by Edmondson, second by Beckius to approve. Please call the roll.
Best,
Yes.
Edmondson,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
and Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Item number 12, communications correspondence.
I don't have anything additional to report upon or file at this point.
Very good.
Maybe I, though, could take just this moment to express thank you to Mr. Beckius for his service on the RTSD board. Have appreciated your support and for the RTSD, and My understanding is 2 new city council members will continue with James. Appreciate that. And that Justin Carlson and Brody Weber will be the 2 new members, and we look forward to getting to know them and having them serve as well. Justin is here today. He couldn't vote or participate, but I appreciate you coming and listening to the board member, and I'll be trying to give them some updates on just the operation of the RTSD in later days. So,
Yes, Roma.
I would like to make a note here. The RTSD budget public hearing Tuesday, September the 6th. The September the 6th of 2023 is actually on a Wednesday.
Really? Let's check our calendars, which
oh my.
may need.
Well-
Looks like she's correct.
No surprise there.
Roman can read a calendar.
Thank God. She's keeping us on track. So we want to amend that to the 5th, Roger?
Yes, can we make an official amendment to that agenda such that the minutes would reflect that the future meeting will be Tuesday, September 5th?
Rogers, the day after Labor Day, if that makes any difference, anybody here's calendar.
I'll be here the day after Labor Day, if needed.
Okay. We do have some time here to evaluate, just like we did for this meeting. We did move this meeting back 1 week. The caution in that September meeting is there's a statutory requirement to have the required auditor's budget to them on the 21st of September or 29th of September? 30th. Okay. So we can't delay too long. If there aren't any changes in the budget, usually Mr. Dorina can get those finished and done. But if we delayed, we'd need to make it a fairly short delay later in that week or maybe just the next week. But Mary and I will work with board members on calendars to kind of see where everybody is ahead of time. Thank you for your stewardship and reviewing.
I was just going to enter it
Proofing.
down.
Thank you.
So are we just leaving it as is for right now to be determined later when we'll actually meet?
Or should we make a motion to move it to the 5th? And
Let's do that, and then I will confirm that we'll have a quorum, and if not, I'll work with the board members for possible.
I would move that we change those meetings for the RTSD budget public hearing as well as the regular board meeting to Tuesday, September 5th, 2023.
Second?
A motion by Edmondson, second by Beckius to adjust the date of the next meetings from Tuesday the 6th to Tuesday the 5th.
From Wednesday, the 6th to Tuesday.
Well, it's
the
actually,
6th.
yeah, gotcha. Like Roma said, we'll go with that. Please call the roll.
Okay, Edmondson,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
and Best.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to
Well,
adjourn? Oh,
Let me
sorry.
just ask if there's any public comment before I do that. Anyone here like to make public comment?
Councilman Carlson? Last opportunity.
All right, with that, Tom made a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Roma. Please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Best, and Edmondson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. We are adjourned.